You're listening to the Waypoint TV Podcast Network, brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors.
Hey everyone, this is Captain Steve Roger from Into the Blue TV. And as soon as I feel a little break from this heat, I know that hunting season is upon us. Actually, the first time I ever went hunting, a buddy took me. Wasn't my father or my grandfather. In fact, I took my father on his very first hunt. Well, Academy Sports and Outdoor Stores has everything to gear up for the field for less. Plus, you can shop a wide selection of ammo, shotguns, deer corn, rifle, feeder, game cameras, camo, and more from the brands you trust. Text HUNT24 to 22369 to take $20 off a $100 purchase when you shop hunting supplies at academy.com. Need a hunting license? Pick it up in store while you're shopping.
This episode is brought to you by United Airlines. When you want to make the most of your vacation, book with United. They're an airline that cares about your travels as much as you do. United is transforming the flying experience with Bluetooth connectivity, screens, power at every seat, and bigger overhead bins to help fit everyone's bag. And with their app, you can skip the bag check line, get live updates, and more. Change the way you fly. Book your next trip today at united.com.
Join Justin Townsend and the Harvesting Nature crew as they explore the world of cooking wild fish and game while sharing recipes, tips, tricks, and lessons learned from their pursuit of wild food. We sure hope you ate before the show, 'cause you're gonna leave hungry. This is the Wild Fish and Game Podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Harvesting Nature's Wild Fish and Game Podcast. You got your host here, Justin Townsend. And first off, I want to say Happy Indigenous Peoples Day. Definitely celebrated that in my own house today. And then we went down to the cafe at the, I think it's the National Museum of American Indian or the American Indian National Museum. I don't know what it's called. It's in D.C. We go to it there. I like their cafe. It's pretty good. I had a nice bison stew, and they had a roasted salmon dish, which they kind of roast like on those angle spit things over the fire, with rice cake and wild rice cake and some horseradish sauce with maple glaze on it. So yeah, celebrated that. I got some deer ribs that I cooked up over the open fire over the weekend that I'm going to reheat with some sauce on them and take to a party here shortly after. So we're doing all kinds of celebrating. And then we did rose hips. So we had a rose bush in our front yard that produced some pretty massive rose hips, and just harvested them yesterday. And we processed them last night and dried them and been using them for tea today. Especially for my daughter. She's a bit of a sore throat, so the vitamin C would help. Pretty excited about that. Today's episode, we're going to be discussing both the heart and the liver. We've got Adam here with us.
Hey, guys.
He's back for his umpteenth episode. And then we're joined by Heidi.
Hello.
She's back again with us. If you roll back and listen to the episode we did with Heidi a few weeks ago, which was pretty awesome. And then let's see. I'll give everybody a chance to catch up kind of on current events here in just a moment, but I want to give you kind of a quick thing. So we'll go into the heart and liver discussion. Our next episode, we announced this a while back. We were supposed to have Andrew Zimmern on the podcast. He unfortunately got caught up in some work and had to reschedule, so we've got him back again. So that's coming up here next, hopefully. Also, too, last week we had on Ken, who did the first episode of the Rookies podcast series, which is really awesome. I love the episode. I listened to it. I actually was on my way home listening to it in the car, and I didn't finish it by the time I got home, and I sat out in front of my house in the car finishing it. I was so caught up in it. So please let us know how you liked that episode. Give us some feedback. Shout outs to Ken, who did a great job with that. And then also too, so we're getting to the tail end of our Cooking by Cut series. We only have one after this one. Our last one, we're going to kind of wrap up some really cool, interesting wobbly bits. We're going to talk about the kidney. We're going to talk about caul fat. We're going to talk about trotters, and we're going to talk about testes. Should be all very interesting parts of the animal that not a lot of people consume, but it's there for the picking. So whenever you harvest an animal, it's there. If you use how to use it, learn how to use it. It makes an extra meal, which is really good. But we'll get to chatting here in a minute. I'll kick it over to Adam. What you got going on?
A little bit. I just got back from goose hunting the other day, and I got 4 nice big Canada geese. So I spent the afternoon after I shot them, I plucked them all and gutted them, and spent all this morning dismantling them basically into all the different pieces that I saved, and ended up with a ton of meat. So I'm very happy about that. And we got them field hunting. I think that's my favorite kind of hunting out there, just field hunting for geese. It's super chill / super exciting, and you get a ton of meat out of the deal, and I really love it. And they're so plentiful, these things, that I don't feel too bad about removing a couple from the landscape. And then for Indigenous Peoples Estates today, I actually just received an order of wild rice that I put out an order through an Ojibwe company in Canada here, and they do all hand harvested wild rice,
nice.
Traditional way. So I ordered it, and coincidentally ended up in my house today. So I'm looking forward to making some cool Manneman kind of wild rice dishes. Really looking forward to that. And other than that, I'm starting to scout for deer, and trying to get out for duck. Been having lots of fun. Love this season.
Sweet. Heidi, what have you been up to?
Working on the farm. It's been really nice. The pastures really bounced back after the drought we had. So we're trying to capitalize on the really nice fall growth, the cool season stuff. So cattle are being moved more. Fall calves are happening, which is adorable, and I love seeing them. And I've also been getting out hunting whenever I can, getting a lot of hard education and how to hunt with a crossbow and getting close and play the wind and things like that, but enjoying the learning process for sure. And I love fall, so I'm just in a great mood and just happy to see the leaves changing and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's nice. It's finally set in. I felt like it was really delayed. I mean, we're in the middle of October, and I think it finally dropped down below 50, 60 consistently for a few days in the evenings and nights and stuff, which is good. I've been to baking more using the oven. I made this spice cake today with a maple syrup glaze on the top. Not a glaze, I guess, an icing. Used confectioner sugar, a little bit of milk, and maple syrup. And the cake itself, I incorporated bear fat into it. If you've seen our social media, you've seen I've been playing a lot with bear fat lately. Made a bear fat washed cocktail, which was pretty phenomenal. I'm bear fat washed whiskey, and then I did make a cocktail, but I haven't shared that video yet. That one's coming up. I made an old fashioned with black walnut bitters from Jamie Carlson. Gifted me some of that, and some also black walnut syrup. So I used both of those in the old fashioned with the bear fat washed whiskey. So it was like a completely wild, minus the whiskey, but it was Buffalo Trace, so that's kind of
Could have got some of that venison whiskey.
Yeah, I still have some. Actually, that's funny. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that next. I still have some of that, but I drank all the bear fat washed whiskey over the weekend. I didn't make very much, so I didn't drink a whole bottle, but it was pretty tasty. A lot of people commented on that, wondering what it tastes like. It was very similar to kind of a lot of other things that cut the bite of the whiskey down, gave it kind of a smooth, buttery flavor without kind of that dairy flavor you get kind of when you butter wash whiskey or when you used to eat butter. A better way to describe it. But no, that was fun. But yeah, other than that, hunting season's here. I've been out off and on hunting. I didn't go out this weekend due to just family stuff around the house, but did a lot of wild food stuff, playing with this open fire pit I got, which is super fun. It's interesting though, because you have to time it right. So it takes me like an hour to get a fire where I want it before I start cooking on it. So I kind of like have to plan ahead. I think I did the deer ribs that I hung them and had to move them in and out, closer to the fire, over the coals, closer, move them in and out. And I used like a temperature gun to monitor the temperature on the outside of the ribs. And I tried to keep them at probably like 120 Fahrenheit. I don't know what that is in Celsius, but
yeah, I can't think of it right now.
Tried to keep it there for about 3.5 hours or so. But we talk about oftentimes when you're cooking deer ribs is you get that like waxy fat, the tallow from the deer, and Adam appreciates it, but there's other folks that don't, and you're always looking for methods to kind of like let it come off of there. I think this method's really good because it's literally just hanging and the fat is just dripping off of it. So it's just rendering down off of it. Also, too, I didn't take any of the silver skin off the back of the ribs or anything like that. I left it because my goal was to see if I could keep it at a consistent temp and then get the meat to a temperature where I could melt that off and it would like come off and, create that sort of like collagen rendering bit. So I think I got there. They're pretty good. But yeah.
It's 50 degrees Celsius, by the way.
50 degrees. There we go. 50 degrees Celsius.
Yeah. A very, very, very hot day, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be very hot.
Yeah.
All right, let's start talking. We're going to open up with the heart. That sounds weird to say that, but we'll go with the heart here first. So physical description of the cut. So the heart, it's an organ found in animals. For those that don't know, everything has a heart. All animals have a heart. Somebody's going to probably correct me on that. But and its main function is to pump blood throughout the body in blood vessels, veins, arteries, all those things. It carries oxygen and nutrients, the tissue, and then goes carbon dioxide to the lungs, blood to the lungs. I don't want to get too into the biology because I don't want to misstep. I know that there's a circle of oxygen and carbon dioxide from the heart to the lungs to the muscles. The heart itself is divided into 4 chambers. You get the upper left and right atria and the lower left and right ventricles. They each kind of move and do different things as they pump. Hearts can range in size from a thimble, like if you think about on ducks or geese, they're really small. Dove are super small. And then, like a small fist, like a child's fist, as you go through the various game animals, all the way up to like an elk heart or a bison heart or a moose heart, which is pretty massive. More like a softball or larger. They say a good way to, well, I don't know, this is not going to apply to animals at all, but like in humans, you say like if you make a fist that's generally like the size your heart would be. Mm-hmm. So I would say that that's kind of like a good reference. I don't know. But Adam, can you walk through real quick how to remove the cut? Absolutely.
So if you have your animal opened up, you're going through the guts. Generally, the diaphragm, you'll find the diaphragm which separates the chest and the stomach cavities. So in the stomach cavities is where all the intestines and the liver and everything are. And beyond the diaphragm is where the heart and lungs are. So to remove it, you're going to feel around in the chest cavity. You'll feel that like kind of stiff heart-shaped piece in the chest cavity. You'll know it's a heart when you touch it. You can slice any connective tissue above the top of the heart that's holding on, and you can pull it out like that. From there, you can prepare it by cutting off, like you can continue to prepare it by cutting off any veins, fat, hard tissue from the top, and then slice the heart in half if you're going to be cutting it up, or you can keep it whole and kind of like core it out like a green pepper. So if you're thinking of the green pepper and how it's shaped with the ribs inside and the seeds in the top, you can basically just picture the heart like that and just core it out, remove any small strings or anything like that, and it's good to go.
I like the bell pepper analogy a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks a lot like it feels a lot like it, and it kind of gives you a sense of what it's going to look like. Once you have it removed, just keep it clean. I often bring Ziploc bags with me to when I'm gutting animals, and I'll separate everything into Ziploc bags just to keep it off the ground. I find things like the heart and liver, which we'll talk about too, can easily pick up things like pine needles and leaves, and then they kind of get sticky, and they really stick to it. It's better not to do that. So keep them clean. In terms of culinary history, in hunting and gathering cultures, the heart was often the first part of an animal to be consumed after a hunt, and often raw. So hunter-gatherers, indigenous peoples would often remove the heart before anything else and enjoy it in a ritualistic kind of way. It's often thought that eating the heart would imbue the eater with some of the qualities of the actual animal, whether that be, bravery or speed or whatever else.
Did you guys ever do that kind of as part of your hunting experience? Very curious.
No, I never did. I never had a mentor or anything, or any sort of initiation kind of ceremony as a child getting into it. I just kind of started on my own, and I think if I was by myself, I'd feel a little silly eating a heart out of an animal. So I never even really thought to do it when I got it. It's interesting. What about you, Heidi?
The first deer that I ever took, I wound up shooting her right through the heart, almost right down the middle. And it was before work. I totally didn't expect any of that to happen. So I didn't keep it. I didn't know if it was okay to eat it still. So it was, it was buried with the rest of the gut pile. But since then, I have eaten heart, just not raw. So if I have a heart shot, I'll save what I can. If it's a lung shot and the heart's intact, I always keep it. I do enjoy eating it, but that's something I would like to try at some point, is to try it raw.
I've actually made venison heart apache, which is Mexican kind of style meat ceviche. So I have eaten raw heart, just not still beating clutch at Indiana Jones style out of an animal. Was
it Deer Hunter? Was that the movie? The Robert De Niro? Was it Robert De Niro? Old he bites it.
Yeah.
I think maybe I'm completely off on where it is. I mean, I don't ever remember doing it or anybody trying to make me do it. I think they talked about it and people were don't worry about it. I know people have had it let me taste the blood or do whatever, but I don't know. I feel like that's kind of an antiquated ritual.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it depends on how you're raised and kind of the initiation rites and the rites of passages that you might have in your own family or culture. But it certainly wasn't ever part of mine. So yeah, I wasn't about to copy it or try to do it myself.
Or drink a cup of deer blood or something like that. Yeah, I don't know. I think you could be a hunter and not have to eat a pulsating heart. It's up to you, but definitely. I could see it. If we're talking about culturally significant, whatever, man. If that's part of it, that's part of it. But I would see to you in a lot of you think about both the heart, the liver, and some of the other really vital organs through traditional indigenous cuisine and cultures. Those were oftentimes consumed first. Also, too, because they were very nutrient dense and could provide different nutrients than the meat necessarily would. But they were also some of the quickest to go bad. And so that's one of the reasons I think they were eaten first. And maybe that's where that sort of adoption of where the eating the heart ritual came from. I don't know. We should do some more investigative journalism into where this tradition comes from and if it still exists. Because now that we talk about it more, I'm this is kind of intriguing here.
Yeah, maybe we'll have to write an article about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I see, oftentimes, I think where I see the most wild game hearts is on Valentine's Day. People, that's become the norm for social media posts of pictures of hearts.
Yeah. You skipped ahead on my history, Justin.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We're not at Valentine's Day yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Roll it back.
We're rolling it back.
All right, Adam, continue on. I'll be quiet.
talk about still eating the heart as like a ceremonial thing. The Vikings apparently would save the heart off of any hunt for the chieftain or king, believing the same things that it would imbue you with that kind of power from the animal. So it went from the people on the hunt to actually people kind of giving it to the chief or the king, which is pretty interesting. As time rolls on, during the World Wars, beef and pork hearts were commonly eaten on the home front. Meat was generally sent overseas to soldiers, so people were eating a lot more organs. And the recipes I found from that era tend to be mostly like pig and beef hearts, just stuffed and baked. So if they weren't doing it properly, they were probably eating very tough, chewy, kind of nasty meat. And for those people who could actually cook, it was probably not too bad. That brings us into modern day, where Valentine's Day, people often post about hearts. And I noticed that too. It's just like every year it's something that I kind of took part in a little bit, and then I kind of stopped because I'm like that. Sometimes I'm an anti, I don't know what you call it. When everyone else is doing it, then I'm like, oh, that's dumb. But even though I did it myself.
Yeah, I mean, I've done it too. I feel like, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah,
but
it's kind of fun.
Yeah, it's just interesting that because let's roll back maybe 5-6 years ago, right? You didn't see a lot of hearts posted on social media. I think the consumption of it has emerged as a popular thing, which is significant. The significance is judged by the amount of hearts I see on Valentine's Day. The fact that people are even pulling out the heart, saving it, and taking a picture of it.
Yeah, definitely.
I also see a lot of it in the bow hunting community of people that make good like heart shots. They'll be like, "Oh, check this out!" Like here's this where I put this arrow perfectly through this heart, or like people then will be like, "Check out my broadhead." I'm like, "That's cool." But
I think a heart meal would make for a good date. I think I would appreciate if someone cooked me a heart for Valentine's Day.
Yeah,
I'm more likely to be the one cooking the heart, to be honest. But
sure.
I'd be happy with that.
Yeah, I think so too. I would be happy if somebody cooked me heart. I like heart a lot. I've got some good. We'll talk about these heart recipes here in a minute, but I've got some good go-tos that I keep in my repertoire, and they're like pretty good quality to where you could put these down in front of anybody and nobody's going to question whether or not it's like a heart. And then they're also going to just like, this is great. So I don't know, Adam, let's see any dishes that you know off the top of your head that kind of exemplify the hearts.
Yeah, there's some pretty famous dishes around the world that you may have heard of. And I'm probably going to mispronounce some of them potentially, but one really famous one, and I see this on pretty much every single wild game recipe website, and for good reason, is anticuchos. That's how you pronounce it, Justin, you know? Anticuchos. Sure. It's a Peruvian dish of like skewered heart. They can be other meats too, but it's usually heart. It's dressed in like a garlic and pepper paste, with seasoned, grilled, and generally sold by street vendors. And they're apparently really tasty. Did you try any when you were in Peru while you were there?
I did it. I'm trying to remember if I had them while I was there. I certainly ate like a good variety of different types of meat while I was there, but I'm trying to think specifically to the skewers. We ate like big meals while we were there, so I didn't really wander the streets in search of street food, although I should have. So maybe not. If I did, it didn't stand out to me, which is not a good sign.
Yeah. Another interesting dish that's a kind of funny one is mock goose, which is an Australian dish that with a very odd name, and it's basically a stuffed and braised beef heart. I don't know why it's called mock goose. I don't know if maybe it was British people getting to Australia that didn't have their Christmas goose, so they used a beef heart instead. I just made that up, so I don't know if that's true, but maybe there's something behind that name. It's an odd one. I never actually made that one. Yakitori, which is They're Japanese skewers, and they're often usually made with chicken, and particularly offal. So you'll often get like a different little skewers full of different pieces of chicken and chicken offal, and the hearts are one of the most famous ones and delicious ones, which is pretty fun. Another one is haggis, which everyone's heard of haggis, I'm sure, but you generally grind. It's a Scottish dish made by grinding heart, liver, and lungs, mixing them with Scottish oats, spices. You stuff it all into a sheep's stomach and boil it. I've made a lot of haggis in my life, including venison haggis, and I gotta say, it's way better than you would ever think. Anyone who's squeamish about it should just try it, because it's just something as like tasty and mundane as meatloaf or something like that. It's just not scary at all. And lastly, tacos de corazon, which are Mexican street tacos made by quickly searing pieces of heart that have been seasoned and hucking them on a taco, which is always one of my favorite ways to eat something. So those are some famous ones. Do you want to talk about cooking the heart, Heidi?
Yeah, definitely. I've done variations of some of the recipes that you went through. The first hearts I ever cooked actually were chicken hearts, and it was for a Game of Thrones dinner.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've also had Game of Thrones dinners, actually. So I'm a nerd like that.
Yeah, I was looking for something like that was kind of on theme, but like everybody brought like big hunks of cheese, and I think we might have had like mutton or something, but I was like, let's try these, and they were good. I did like a curry. So I would definitely enjoy, if I had enough like bird hearts, I would do something like that again. And I've done them on skewers, which I like. Haggis I also really like. Never made it, but I've had some very good haggis at like Scottish bars and things. And of course, like you said, anything's good on a taco.
Mm-hmm.
I would say personally, for cooking the heart, like really hot and fast over open fire is my favorite way to do it. I think I've only tried to stew it once, and it was very tough and like firm and almost like iron, like metallic-y tasting.
Mm-hmm.
Not very pleasant. So I usually recommend like people that ask me like how to cook this is like don't stew it. I've never tried going all the way in like a full slow cook or an Instapot or anything. But one of my things that I like to do is like, I should probably do that now that we're in October, is if I have any venison heart from the previous season, or if I get a deer early in the season, I'll just have the heart and make a bonfire and just kind of celebrate the autumn with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, once you get over like any kind of squeamishness or intimidation, it's just a very tasty cut. And even at my job, we do sell beef heart. People ask about it all the time, and I kind of compare it to like a smooth steak. Yeah. So it's just like a cardiac muscle. It doesn't have like, it's not stringy. Once you've trimmed anything inside of it that you'll know is clearly not meat, it's like a nice texture. So it's like great for marinating, great for grilling, and it's just really tasty and good for you.
Yeah, like Heidi said, the heart is made out of cardiac muscle rather than skeletal muscle. So in terms of organ meat, it is more like muscle meat. You'll find that the texture is more similar to, say, a loin than like a liver or something, but it is still different. I like how Heidi said it's like a smooth muscle. Mm-hmm. But it's nice, and when it cooked really fast, hot and fast, it's nice and tender. If you don't cook, you either have to braise it for a really long time till it really breaks down and it becomes tender, or cook it fast. Anything in the middle is going to be like boot leather. Interestingly enough, the heart doesn't actually go through rigor mortis when the rest of the animal does. Maybe because it's made out of cardiac muscle rather than the skeletal muscle, it doesn't actually seize up or anything. And it doesn't need to be aged to be tenderized or anything. In fact, it doesn't age well. Which is maybe why people always took it out of the animal first, like you mentioned. Like I said, it has to be cooked either really hot and fast or low and slow. And a lot of people I've talked to have been like, oh, I had heart once and it was good, and then I tried to make it myself and it was awful. It was just like chewing on boot leather. And that's why you just, like, once you cook it past medium, it's basically going to be tougher and tougher and tougher and tougher until you cook it for like 4 hours.
Which I think is like generally people's go-to when they're uncomfortable with game meat or meat in general, or like anything, is to just overcook it, thinking that they're going to cook whatever is wrong with it out. And I don't think that's the case with heart, because it's a muscle, right? And there's no like the the texture is different. The flavor is very similar, but it's not far off from a regular meat cut.
Yeah.
Like a standard cut you would find, outside the animal. I
would say it's the best gateway organ.
Yeah, 100%.
For someone, if you're gonna try to introduce yourself or friends to organ meat, the heart is the way to go for sure. The first one to go.
And put it on a taco.
Yeah.
Like literally grill it, quick, sear some sort of sauce, put it on a taco, and give it to somebody. And like that's gonna get you probably further than any other method to try to like fancy it up. I don't think this is a cut that needs to be fancied up. It comes with it's pumped full of flavor, and it's really good cut, and it's easy to cook. Like Adam talked about sort of like my analogy of the green bell pepper method. Like that's pretty straightforward. Once you get it laid out, you can sort of cut and trim in strips or chunks or whatever, and then just grill it or grill the whole thing and cut it up later into like minced meat or something.
It takes a marinade. It's pretty well too, which is nice. So like you made the Japanese kind of style heart.
Yeah, the yakitori.
The yakitori hot, and that just looks amazing, and that marinade just works so well in like kind of a soy marinade. And I find like Heidi said, if you stew it, I do find the flavor is not quite as good stewed as cooked, like seared. So what I do often is if I do braise or stew it, I will make it with pretty intense flavors. So I've done like a Portuguese flavors, so like lots of piri-piri, or hit it up with just like a curry or different like stronger flavors to cover some of that minerality that comes through when you slow cook it. And the heart, it can be stir fried really nice because it's just a quick and hot. Like you don't want to like let it bubble away forever. You just want to like super quick and hot. A lot of people stuff and bake them, which can be good, but I would say it's my least favorite preparation. It's the hearts are begging to be stuffed just because they're like a vessel kind of that you can stuff easily. And a lot of people love it, so I'm not yucking on anyone's yum, but it's generally my least favorite way to enjoy the heart.
Yeah, I think the grill, man, is the go-to for me. Yeah. Like char and crispy and yummy and saucy, and that's it.
Yeah.
It's like
some like chimichurri sauce on it or something.
Something.
Yeah.
All right.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like, to check you have the tickets in your wallet first before you drive 2 hours to the big game. Seriously, you had one job. Now the closest you'll get to the 50-yard line is parking lot D. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
Whether you're ordering wings for the game, whipping up a 7-layer dip, or ordering pizza, there's something about football that makes you want to eat. And this football season, Uber Eats has the best deals on game day food. No matter what you're craving, from 2-for-1 pizza to buy one, get one wings, Uber Eats will be dropping new deals each week, all season long. Uber Eats, official on-demand delivery partner of the NFL. Order now. Terms and conditions apply. See app for details.
Let's switch gears. Let's talk about the liver. So I think physical description of the cut, the liver is very apparent. It is a, bean-shaped organ inside inside the animal. If you don't know what a liver looks like, Google it. I hate to be that direct, but the liver's main job is to filter the blood. To take kind of impurities out of the blood and flush it out and do all that. So it does start to do something different than kind of some of the other organs do. And you start to move from muscles into like what I would consider like organs. Very much functional for one particular thing. I guess although muscles are functional for one particular thing too. But so it is a very interesting cut. If you go to cook it and eat it, I would tell you that on wild game, very specifically, the flavor of the liver is largely shaped by diet and age. So We don't see that as much when you think about domestic meat because we're consuming meat that's younger. It's bred specific. It's harvested early in the prime like eating condition. But in game, a lot of times you're chasing bigger, older animals. So you're going to get bigger, bolder flavors out of the liver. I've had some good experiences with liver, and I've had some bad experiences with liver. But I tell you, there's a way to balance it, to find something you like. And we'll talk about some dishes here, and I guarantee you we will talk about something that will tickle your fancy and will satisfy you in the world of liver. If we're talking about where to find it, so the liver's on the right side of the animal. Basically, like if you're looking at the animal, it would be on the right side.
On the left side?
On the left side. If you are the animal, it's on your right side. We'll figure it out. If you open up the body cavity, it's going to be kind of like midways back on kind of the gut cavity.
It's kind of the largest like solid organ there is. It's made out of a couple lobes, but other than like the intestines, which are kind of sloppy, the liver is going to be probably the largest organ that you're pulling out of the body cavity. So it's pretty easy to find that way, I think.
Yeah, and so really what you're looking for is you're going to see the lungs and then really right behind the lungs. So you've got the lungs, you've got the heart kind of below the lungs, you've got the liver behind the lungs, then you've got the stomach, which will be huge and puffy, and then you've got your intestines, which just look like a bunch of rope. So that's kind of like where it's going to be at. You will find it generally if you're accessing, the body cavity of the deer. If you're cutting down the middle and you're kind of pulling the sternum and the rib cage and all that open, you continue to go down below where the sternum's at, and you kind of get into just where there's the skin there, and then you get into the cavity. You'll find it pretty easily, and it'll be apparent. I'll tell you too. Also, liver is a good way to judge the health of an animal. If the liver looks like liver, like literally Google a picture of liver on the internet, search it up, as my kids say, and you'll see like, all right, this is what a liver is supposed to look like. If a liver does not look like that, don't eat it.
If it's spotted, or we're looking, if it's not like a liver's can kind of range from like a pale brownish purple to like a dark purple. If it's got any weird colors other than that, maybe take a step back and reconsider.
I would say like, I think this just kind of generally goes for a lot. If you're gonna keep organ meats, it's easier to take them out of the animal and then kind of like parse through them versus trying to do it inside the animal. The only exception being the heart, because generally you'll pull everything else out and then you'll get access to the heart, and you kind of have to reach up in the body cavity to get to the heart to pull it down. But everything else just kind of pull out and have this like visual map of where they all are, and you could pick around in there. It's a very odd feeling when you're doing that, but it's satisfying when you take them home. I also always take Ziploc bags. I usually take like 4 or 5 Ziploc bags in addition to my game bags in my pack, so I can put the heart, the liver, the kidneys, the tongue, all these pieces I want to keep separate from my meat so that they're kind of like in their own. Plus, they, like the liver itself has got the bile sac on it. If you accidentally tear that, you don't want that getting on your meat. You've got like other stuff. Sometimes you need to kind of clean up the organs a little more than you would the muscles. And it's just good to have them separate, I think, in my mind. Plus, I also feel comfortable taking a whole heart and just putting it in the freezer and then coming back and cleaning it later. Or a whole liver and putting it and cleaning it later versus like, I don't want to do that with meat. I want to like let it go through rigor and all those things like that. So if you do get bile on it, that little bile sac, you'll see kind of like, it's where the liver kind of like comes together at the bottom. I'm doing some weird visualizations here as I'm talking and nobody can see it but Heidi and Adam. Maybe we'll do the video. But kind of at the base of where the liver is, you'll see that little bile sac. If you get bile on the liver, just rinse it off. You don't want to leave it on there. You want to have a clean liver before you put it into storage.
If you do leave it on there for a little while, if you notice, or if it got shot through the bile sac, I recommend cutting any pieces that are tainted off if you can't rinse it off anymore, because it's been it's kind of acidic, so it would be eating away at it. Just cut the whole pieces off because that's going to taste awful.
I think Adam makes a great suggestion in our show notes of like separating the liver into half-pound pieces in your freezer, or even 1-pound pieces, or whatever you're gonna do with it, versus putting an entire liver in there. Because I've had this happen. You pull out the whole liver and you're like, oh, I've got this whole liver I got to deal with now. Like, what am I gonna do with a 3-pound liver? Which that's a lot of meals, right?
Yeah.
If we think about portioning out, you go and you get an 8-ounce portion or something, a 3-pound liver off a doe or buck, that's what, 6 meals if you're consuming liver, that's pretty substantial.
And a big moose or elk liver they're massive, so
huge.
You can get a lot of meals off of it.
Adam, you want to go a bit into culinary history? Anybody have any thoughts?
I don't think so. Heidi?
I just had a quick question about the bile sac. So is the bile, is it a yellow color fluid?
Yeah, it's like a yellow, greenish yellow kind of. Yeah.
Okay. I had shot a deer last year, and I saw some of that kind of like under the skin and the fascia when I was field dressing. Well, I was actually at home at this point, but yeah, we suspected a liver shot, from, a fragment of the round. So I guess that's an interesting thing to look out for, is see if that bile sac had been ruptured in any way. And I did. I removed all of that.
Yeah, that's good. That's the way to do it. If you open up your deer and you found that bile has gotten over everything, try rinsing it out first. But if you can still see the discoloration on the meat, you're probably going to taste it. So just kind of slice off the outer edges of the meat where it's touched. Same thing goes for birds. Like, we're generally talking about big game here, but if you're going into your bird and you slice open, say like a goose or something, and you slice open that bile sac, just pull everything out, rinse everything off quick, because it can really taint everything. It's pretty nasty stuff. Although I've heard of some indigenous practices and elsewhere in the world where they use that to season food, which seems insane to me. Which shows the differences of what people can taste and find save, like something that tastes really good. I can't even imagine eating a piece of it, but they would use it as like an actual seasoning.
What is it? Pinapatin? A Filipino dish that uses bile as flavor.
Oh, there's some.
And then in Laos and northern Thailand, bile.
Yeah, they often, they really, do a lot of liver and bile stuff there. It's interesting. So, in terms of culinary history, the word liver comes from the Old English for slimy or sticky, which makes sense if you've ever handled the liver. It can be very sticky. Like I mentioned before, if you're field dressing outside, it really can get nasty with like pine needles and everything sticking to it. So like Justin said, just put it into a Ziploc bag right away, right from the gut pile into a bag. Otherwise, you're going to get it. It's going to be an awful mess. When you're looking at the Romantic languages, like Italian, French, Spanish, and everything, it's interesting because the word for liver, which is for French is foie, comes from the Roman feccatum, which means stuffed with figs, and that refers to Roman foie gras. Foie gras being the fatty liver of a goose, which started in Roman times as a delicacy, and they would be feeding them figs to fatten them up like that. And that's where the word liver actually comes from in the Romantic languages, which I'm a bit of a language nerd, so I thought that was pretty cool. I'm just exposing all my nerdiness in this episode all at once.
You're in a safe space, man.
Yeah.
We're happy to hear it.
Oh, that's good. There were times when the liver was more highly prized than muscle meats, especially in indigenous communities and prehistoric communities. And the liver was often eaten by those who needed nutrition the most, which were, pregnant women, children, the elderly, or the sick. If it wasn't used for that, it was often saved for a special guest or eaten by the leader of the tribe, which seems to be pretty consistent with a lot of the organ meat. That kind of switched over in medieval times, where the liver was often eaten by peasants, and along with other offal, might have been like some of the only meat they got to eat. Maybe chicken, some like offal from beef or pork, but they didn't actually get to eat much of the actual muscle meat. So it was seen more as a poor food. Like I mentioned before, during the World Wars, most meat was shipped overseas to soldiers. So people at home often end up eating liver and offal more than anything else. And I've heard that actually caused a bit of a pendulum swing where people who grew up in the the 40s, 50s didn't like liver as much because they had to eat it as children all the time. And that's kind of what kicked liver out into an unpopular food. And you would have a hard time nowadays finding people who like liver under 50 years old. It's not eaten all that much. It's kind of the poster child for gross foods in some ways, which is too bad because it can be made good. But I've had some, like I'm sure you guys have too, some horrible liver dishes, and I can see why people are turned off by it too. It can be a pretty strong food, but stay tuned because there's ways to eat it that are really quite tasty.
I think the only time I've ever made myself like sick off my own food, like an immediate tasting sick, was with an antelope doe liver that I was trying to make pate with. So antelope being very sagey, liver very sagey, an older antelope doe as well. So remember I talked earlier about age and diet shaping the flavor. And it was warm when I tasted it too, which did not help my taste buds
warm
at all.
pate is
So,
not,
no. And I immediately went and I had to ugh. But we got past that. I still don't know that I would do antelope liver pate ever, but I've since consumed many pates, and they're still really tasty. So
we do the wild pig liver pate, and that turns out just fine. I find, I don't know if it's anecdotal just for me, but from the livers I've consumed a lot because people all give me their livers and hearts and everything, where I end up with like a ton of them in my freezer all the time. The darker the liver, the more stronger the flavor for me.
The darker the berry, the sweeter the juice.
Yeah, well, there you go. It just seems always more like way more flavorful, almost bordering on bad if it gets a really dark purple liver, where lighter liver generally tastes better to me. And you can especially see that in geese. And the geese I just harvested the other day, I pulled 2 dark purple livers, one in the middle, and one was like just beautiful pale, which is basically, that means that goose has been gorging itself and it's created its own foie gras. So those livers, when I see like a really pale goose liver, I set them aside for a special treat because they're really, really nice. Way more mild, way more creamy. Yeah. So I don't know if that's anecdotal or real, but
no. I was just reading. The USDA has what color is normal for livers, and it's like a yellow liver indicates a fattier liver, and occasionally a liver may be a shade of green. Green livers are condemned at the slaughter plant and rarely seen by customers. The green coloring is due to bile leaching out of the gallbladder into the liver. So that's like what we talked about earlier.
Interesting.
Let's see. Yellow livers are fatty or tan for poultry livers, indicating that, and fatty liver may not cause any damage, but excess fat could lead to inflammation. I don't know, larger discolor compared to a healthy liver. So just because it's lighter doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It may be that you have a really nice, good, fatty animal.
Yeah, I think so. I feel like that's probably what my liver looks like.
Yeah, me too. Pickled.
Yeah, a little pickle, a little pale. Still kicking though.
All right, you want to hit some dishes real quick?
Sure, yeah. So some famous dishes for beef, or for liver, sorry. One that I've made before and I really, really enjoyed is kebda eskandarani, which I'm sure I'm mispronouncing, which means Alexandrian liver. It's an Egyptian specialty consisting of fried beef liver, lots of spicy seasonings, cumin, garlic, cardamom, chili peppers, everything sliced up and seared, and then served on a sandwich with tahini sauce, and usually served on the street, often for breakfast. It is delicious. We have a recipe. Actually, we'll go through the recipe later, I think. Foie gras, which we talked about a little bit. It's a French term meaning fatty liver. Ducks and geese are heavily fed to fatten their livers, which is called gavage. They basically have a tube that goes down the throat to force feed them, which causes a lot of controversy, but ducks do not have gag reflexes, and they're often treated better than most chickens that people, like those rotisserie chickens that people buy. If they buy those from Costco, then I don't know if they're allowed to talk about foie gras in my books, but maybe I'm starting a fight. It's incredible. It's creamy, delicious. It's delicacy. It's very expensive, but it's if you ever get the chance to try it and you're into that kind of thing, it's incredible. There's the liver pate, which is like a pretty pan-European thing, made by pureeing cooked liver and pressing it into a mold. It can go all the way from light and airy, which is like a liver mousse, to rustic and kind of grainy and like a country pate or terrine. So there's like a huge swath of different, like liverwurst and pates and all sorts of different things all across Europe. We could do an episode just on that. Chopped liver is a Jewish specialty that's kind of similar. It's usually chicken livers chopped up and mixed with schmaltz, which is chicken fat. It's quite delicious, and you can find it in delis across many American cities. Dirty rice, which also appears on pretty much every single wild game recipe, including mine, including ours, Harvest Nature. It's a Louisiana Creole dish made from white rice, which gets cooked with liver, which gives it kind of a dirtier brown color. Very delicious, and I would say that is one of the very best ways to try liver for the first time if you're trepidatious about eating it, or you've had it before and you didn't like it. Dirty rice is a great introduction to it because it doesn't taste too livery. It's really nice. And then the famous Asian one is the gado, which is a Filipino stew made from strips of liver and pork braised in a savory sauce, which is made out of soy and vinegar. And like most Filipino food, which often is pretty organ heavy, it's absolutely delicious.
I got 3 comments. So foie gras story. So in California, you cannot, as a retailer or restaurant, you cannot serve or sell foie gras. Mm-hmm. The only place, I remember when this happened, I was living out there when the legislation went into action. The only place you could buy foie gras at the time I was there was at the gift shop in Yosemite National Park.
Really? Why?
Because it's a national park.
Oh, because it's federal. Okay.
It's federal.
Interesting.
So they sold it there, which was really crazy. So I don't know if it's still the same. I know you can't in California, but I don't know if they would be really smart to sell it. It would be a great place to do it. But
can of camp beans and your foie gras over the so somebody
sounds like my meals. I took a charcuterie board to the deer blind last weekend,
nice.
So it's right up my alley.
Really?
Yeah, I needed a snack.
Protein, fat,
protein, fat, crackers, some little like marinated olives. It was really great. The other thing I was going to say, so we think about dirty rice as well. One of my first restaurants I worked at, we used to make these little sandwiches called Dirty Boys, and they were actually just take out the rice of the dirty rice dish, and you just have this like delicious like meat, kind of like think like sloppy Joe but better flavor. But also incorporating liver and ground meat and stuff like that. That inside like a sandwich. Phenomenal. Awesome. So good. And then also one that didn't make the list, boudin. Boudin.
Yeah, I should have,
Yeah, boudin, a sausage, includes liver and stuff in it.
And that's a Louisiana style or Cajun style boudin, which is different than there's also boudin in France.
Yep.
Which I think is a little different, but that stuff is incredible too. That's another really good gateway liver dish.
That's a gateway addiction.
Yeah,
boudin is.
It's gateway to gout.
Yeah.
New album, Gateway to Gout.
Gateway to Gout. I like it. All right, Heidi, you want to talk a little bit about cooking liver? We can jump in wherever too.
Sure. So I remember the words of my great-grandmother. I wrote about this for Harvesting Nature, actually. She was from England, came over during World War II, and I remember her saying in her accent that she never lost, that the key to cooking a liver was that to make sure the pan was very hot. So I did not understand what that meant in my very early cooking days, and yeah, it is very easy to cook liver incorrectly if you're not prepared. So I would say absolutely best way to make liver, absolutely very hot pan, ample amount of, fat or oil. Tallow is great. Butter mixed with olive oil so the butter doesn't burn is great. But yeah, you definitely want to cook it hot and fast. You don't want to overcook it. And there is some considerable prep work, I'd say, with it too. Let's backtrack before you even cook it. When you're processing the liver or you're cutting it up at home, it's going to have the membrane around it. So it's like a silver skin. So I always remove that. That's easier once it's sliced. You can use a knife to just kind of run it along. Because if it's kind of chewy, and if you cook the liver with that on, it will start to kind of curl up and it won't cook evenly. And there are also some veins, like blood vessels that go through the liver that are kind of tough and chewy. And sometimes I don't really care. I just know that they're going to be like that. But if you want a softer, more uniform eating experience, I would definitely remove those. But yeah, in terms of cooking it hot and fast, I like to cook it just so it has a nice sear on it. The edges will be a little bit dark, and you'll kind of know when it's done because blood will start to kind of come out of it, and you'll know to flip it then, and it'll ideally be still a little pink inside.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess you could call that medium rare or rare. I've had it a little bit cooked a little bit more than that, but to me, when it's nice and soft and still a little bit pink, it just tastes the best. And yeah, and you can bread it like you said in some of your recipes. I stopped doing that, so I don't think it's necessary, but certainly good. If you have a seasoned flour, you can shake it in a bag with seasoned flour is really good. And as for the soaking thing, I really don't do that because I did that with vinegar once, and I just left it in there way too long, and the liver dissolved, really broke down. So
super
don't
soft
really have
liver.
much. Yeah, that it's kind of even if you take a piece of liver, it's not muscle at all. You can crush it in your hands almost. It's really interesting texture. But yeah, I kind of keep it simpler these days. But I agree with what you said about heart too. I wouldn't, if you've never had organ meat, don't make liver your first one. Mm-hmm. Even if it's cooked really, really well by someone that's done it before. Because it has a very unique, taste that nothing else has. It's not bad. I guess it can be, but I would say work your way up to liver.
Definitely. You did an article, Justin, on soaking livers before.
Yeah, I was just actually about to talk about that. It's crazy to think too. So the liver completes 500 tasks in the body, which is insane. And I would say there's a common consensus about soaking liver, and I kind of went through and reviewed soaking in milk versus soaking in salt water versus unsoaked. And I think I even did, I'm trying to remember if I did a lemon.
Yeah, I think it was a lemon.
Yeah, lemon.
Salt water and a milk soak.
Yeah, so the theory behind a lot of it is that the liver contains, I'm going to mispronounce this, glutathione. Glutathione and thiols. That's where you get that metallic-y taste that you're and very unique smell. So by soaking, you're limiting the oxidation of those compounds when cooking. And I don't know the science behind it. That's the theory. And then there's several people that say that calcium's credited with lightening the flavor because calcium can bond and bind with the iron in the blood that's present in the liver. So we think about the heart and the muscles and everything else, and there's a theory people constantly spew it of oh, we've got blood coming out of our meat when we're cooking it. No, because once the animal dies, the blood comes out. It's bled out through the wound, or it's bled out through whatever mechanism that the blood comes out. But there's still presence of blood in the liver. And that's just because it's like this massive filter, right? You change your oil on your car and you drain the oil out of the car before you put more oil in. You put the plug back in there and you go to pull out the oil filter and there's always a little oil left in the filter. Same concept. But so this concept is that with the milk soaking is that calcium bonds to the iron in the blood and pulls that out. And then the milk also contains I'm not on a roll with my biological words. Casein,
yeah.
Yeah, which is a protein that often neutralizes a bunch of different compounds. So there's some theories behind this. You can go read the article. We'll put it in the show notes for sure because it's a really cool article. But I tested it. So I took each one. I did milk, I did salt water, I did unsoaked, and I think I hit it with lemon and stuff like right after. Soaked them in the refrigerator for 1.5 days in these solution, each separate. And then we did a cooking taste test by me and my daughter, who was probably like 5 or 6 at the time. I'll tell you, out of that, the milk-soaked one was my least favorite. The texture changed. The meat was kind of grainy and mushy. And it was just lighter, really slightly lighter than the unsoaked liver. Also, too, I'll note, these were an antelope, pronghorn antelope liver. So go back to my story about the bold taste of pronghorn antelope livers. That's kind of what we're dealing with here. The saltwater soaked liver was more moist, which we talk about a lot of that brining and introduction of osmosis of moisture in. So kind of think about that. The flavor was the same as the unsoaked, and then the lingering metallic taste was still there. So it's not great. The unsoaked meat and the lemon water soaked meat had similar texture and moisture content, which was good. The flavor of the lemon soaked liver was slightly lighter and pleasant. And then the main selling point was that the metallic aftertaste quickly lessened after chewing. And in the
that
end,
water? Was that water with just lemon juice, some lemon juice added to the water, or just straight lemon juice?
This is a good question.
I imagine it was water with lemon juice, or else it would have started like acid cooking the liver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually didn't go into it into detail as to what I did, which is a flaw in my research. Dang it. We'll do it again. But no, so the unsoaked meat and the lemon soaked liver, I like them for different reasons and could comfortably really eat them prepared either way using the right recipe. I think the lemon-soaked liver on the grill would be good with other citrus and spices and things like that. The unsoaked liver would need to be combined with some really robust flavors in order to like make it work. And then I also, if you're going to soak it, slice it or cube it so that the solution can get into all the meat. But either way, like try it out. Like if you get a big chunk of liver, like cut it into different sections and try soaking and see which one you like, and just kind of play around with it. But yeah, I spent a lot of time talking about that. It's important.
It is, yeah. And soaking livers is something you encounter online. Every single article about livers and recipe talks about soaking them. So I think it's definitely worth digging into a little bit. So I was going to say for cooking liver, like Heidi said, you don't want to go beyond medium. You'll get the grainy, mushy, irony, kind of gross flavor. So be wary of that and keep it at medium. And you don't have to just have liver and onions. Liver and onions are good, but that's a dish for liver lovers. If you're getting into liver, try like a stir fry or a curry or a boudin or dirty rice or something that's a little easier to edge into it, because like how you said, you can easily scare yourself off from liver. And liver and onions just seems like the logical way to go, but I don't think it is. I think it's a lot. If you like liver, it's awesome. If you don't like liver, it will turn you off forever. So try something different if you're gonna go out on a limb and try liver for the first time. Start small, use just a little bit. And try one of our recipes that's not liver and onions to try something new.
So, you want to be a marketer. It's easy. You just have to score a ton of leads and figure out a way to turn them all into customers. Plus, manage a dozen channels, write 1 million blogs, and launch 100 campaigns all at once. When that's done, simply make your socials go viral and bring in record profits. No sweat. Okay, fine. it's a lot of sweat. But with HubSpot's AI-powered marketing tools, launching benchmark-breaking campaigns is easier than ever. Get started at HubSpot.com/marketers.
When it comes to towing, seeing is believing. That's why Chevy Truck's advanced camera technology offers up to 8 available cameras for 14 unique views, so you can focus on the view that really matters. Chevrolet, together let's drive. Learn more about Chevy Trucks at Chevy.com. Safety or driver assistance features are no substitute for the driver's responsibility to operate the vehicle in a safe manner. Read the vehicle owner's manual for important feature limitations and information.
All right, let's do some recipes here real quick. We'll do a quick. Everyone gets one recipe. I will talk about venison heart hash because it's yummy. So, venison heart hash, super great, super easy to do. I think is very approachable for anybody to make, just because you can cut it up into small cubes, so it cooks really quick, and it makes it really enjoyable. It's not like you're consuming big chunks of heart, even like a steak or anything like that, and it's very easy to do. You can also sort of pre-prep it ahead of time, so cook your potatoes, soak them in water, whatever. You can take it to the campsite with you. This is a great camp meal to do in a cast iron skillet or do whatever. Essentially what you're going to do, 1 venison heart cubed, small cubes, oil, seasoning. I recommend Harvesting Nature's Big Game Blend. Super phenomenal. Butter, diced potatoes, red onion, bell pepper, jalapeno, garlic clove, and then serve it over fresh eggs, or like freshly cooked eggs. And it literally is the simplest, most delicious meal ever. You'll get some cool flavors from the heart. You get the potatoes there to kind of absorb and balance out. You don't need a lot of sauciness. You could hit it with some hot sauce if you wanted to. The jalapeno does bring in a little bit of heat. De-seed your jalapeno if you like. And straightforward. Take the, take your cast iron. You're gonna basically I would throw your potatoes in there with your seasoning, and then do your meat at the end to kind of like get a good sear on it, and then hit it with your butter and just like let it cook. You'll figure it out. If you throw everything in there, your potatoes and your meat are going to cook a little offset, so you want to cook the potatoes first. Cool. That's it.
Sounds delicious.
Off to you, Adam.
Okay, I'm going to do a recipe of mine that's on the Harvesting Nature website and the Intrepid Eater website. I actually made this with duck liver, but you can make it with any liver. I find animals have varying strength, like the flavor in livers. Chickens are probably the lightest, then duck, goose, eventually all the way up to, I don't know, probably like sheep or something like that. So it gets kind of stronger and stronger. So if you're starting out, maybe start off with like duck livers or something. So this is the Egyptian duck liver sandwich that I talked about earlier. I just take a pound of duck and or goose livers, made and marinade with like white wine vinegar, cumin, Aleppo pepper, coriander, mint, cinnamon, ground pepper. So it creates this kind of Middle Eastern delicious, like lots of garlic, really delicious marinade. I'm going to marinate the livers for just 1 or 2 hours. You don't need to, because it's so porous, the material that livers are made out of, you don't need to like let it hang out for days. It will become too much. So just a couple hours. Make like a tahini sauce out of tahini, which is like a Middle Eastern sesame paste. Yogurt, lemon juice, vinegar, more cumin and some of those spices to mir, and a little bit of harissa or chili flakes. And then I'm going to take the all that marinated liver and fry it in butter or oil into a large skillet, just like we said, just like kind of hot and fast. We're going to add peppers, onions, chilies, and cilantro. Saute it, slam it onto some nice sesame seed rolls, add some more chilies and cilantro, and drizzle with the tahini sauce. And that is something, honestly, that I would suggest as like a gateway liver recipe. It's delicious. It doesn't taste too much like liver. You got lots happening. Really tasty sandwich. I recommend trying it out if you're interested in getting into livers. Do you want to grab one, Heidi?
Yeah, that sounds delicious, and I will absolutely make that. Real quick, if I wanted to make that with like venison or beef liver, should I just do like the slices of the liver, like straight on the sandwich? Like slices of cooked liver, just right on there?
Yeah, just follow the recipe exactly the same. Just chop your venison or whatever liver up into small pieces. I say 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch pieces. So whatever your liver you're using, just follow that same recipe and it will turn out fine.
That's awesome. I love tahini, so that's a winner for me.
I think traditionally the recipe's made with water buffalo liver too. So duck liver was my different addition.
That sounds awesome.
Holy smokes, water buffalo liver sounds pretty intense.
Yeah. There's a water buffalo farm nearby me, kind of nearby me. I could go pick some up and check it out.
You'd be like, excuse me, do you have any water buffalo livers to spare?
Last time I was there, I picked up water buffalo testicles. So
nice.
Yeah. So liver wouldn't bug them too much.
Yeah. Yeah, sure, whatever.
Okay.
Heidi, you want to do your recipe real quick?
Sure. So mine would definitely be the one, if you've had liver before, would probably be the best bet, because this one is a venison liver with onions recipe. And I like this recipe because I've just made it so many times with a lot of beef liver, like grass-fed beef liver, and it kind of like, it teaches you a lot of interesting cooking techniques, because the liver is also not the easiest thing to cook and make delicious. So it's pretty simple to do. It just like takes a few times to really nail it. So it's just like a pound of venison liver, gonna cut it into slices, trim it up, like trim the membrane, trim the vessels out, try to get as even slices as you can. Some yellow onions, it's like pole to pole. You can do flour if you want. About a 1/4 cup is probably fine. If you want to do the dredging thing, like put it in a bag, kind of shake the liver slices around, and get your pan nice and hot. I like to use the butter with a little olive oil in it. The pan, not like super ripping hot, but like if, you dip the liver in it, it should be sizzling. That kind of hot. And, you know what, actually, I think I have to do the onions first. I don't even remember. I made it so many times I don't remember. Let me double check here. Okay, so cook your onions first till they're translucent, then set them aside. And then you want to put your liver in there and, cook it real quick. You'll know to flip it because, some blood will start to come out. Flip it, put those aside. And I've seen different, like, renditions of this recipe. They say to, like, kind of throw the onions in the pan onto the liver and kind of, like, bring it back up to temperature. I feel like you don't really need to do that, but apparently there's something with onions that kind of help cut down on the liver taste, or there's some reason, like some logical reason why they're often paired with onions, but I don't know. So you can certainly like put the onions on top of it while they're finishing cooking, and if you want to do that. But when the liver's done cooking, you put it aside, and you basically add like some fresh herbs to the onions to kind of like liven it up, brighten it up a little. Sage is really good. Parsley is awesome. I've done this with cilantro. Yeah, it's like anything to kind of like cut through that like really like pronounced kind of minerally earthy flavor that liver has is great. And an optional step that is certainly really good if you're into even more culinary kind of finesse here to finish it off. Once your onions and your liver are done cooking out of the pan, you can kind of deglaze with some wine. Red or white wine's good. You just want to like scrape up any nice fond you got in the bottom of the pan. I like to add a little Worcestershire sauce too in this step because I just love to put that stuff on everything. And yeah, it's so good. Kind of got like a little bit of everything in it. But yeah, so you're just basically making like, I call it a pan sauce. I don't know what like the technical term would be, but if you use flour and you know kind of like how a roux works, it almost will kind of thicken the sauce, so it won't be like a gravy or anything, but I've had it work out a few times where it's like a fairly thick sauce if you've got flour on your liver. If not, it just kind of makes a really like umami, slightly sweet kind of liquid to just pour over your pile of liver and onions. And I like to do that and add a little bit of mustard or a little bit of hot sauce. And personally, I find that both mustard and hot sauce, they don't mask the liver, but they definitely kind of help with that, like, that like punch that you're like, wow, that's liver. Wow. Okay. So it's a simple recipe. You can really change it up a lot. Like I've done, like you can put basil. I've done it with tomatoes, which also seem to do something with the liver flavor too. Like I don't know if it's the acid or what, but change it up. If you've had liver before, definitely just give this one a try. It's kind of like the classic. But there's definitely, you definitely will fully enjoy the taste and the texture of the liver there. There's no, it's not shy in this recipe. But made it a million times with beef liver, and I just found so far the venison liver that I've had was super mild from a young, healthy animal. Definitely seen some liver that I was like, yeah, let's not eat that. But it's good. If you're like, oh yeah, I like liver, I would definitely try it. It's worth saving. And we're saving that liver and giving it a go.
Nice. Sounds delicious.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. I think I would give it a go. I think the sauce is what would change it for me, because my grandfather was a big liver and onions fan, and I never was a big liver and onions fan. Probably as a result of the liver and onions that I ate as a kid or was forced to eat as a kid, which is probably like 80% of Americans and Canadians out there that have also consumed this same thing at our age.
I thought I didn't like liver for years until I cooked it myself. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm still on the fence. Like I can take it or leave it. And honestly, a lot of times, not physically take it or leave it in the field. I always take it, but I could take it or leave it as far as consuming it unless. But man, I tell you, like the dirty rice is probably the easiest way, or boudin is probably the easiest way to use it, and it just gives you such a volume, and you don't really have to deal with a lot of it. You're not eating chunks of liver, you're eating like little ground bits, and I think to me that's the most approachable way that I like to eat it. Although Adam makes a badass pate.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And you just mentioned that you can also grind your liver into your, like for more flavorful ground meat.
Yeah.
You can, which we forgot to mention, you can actually just grind some of your liver into your grind,
or the heart,
or the heart too, and the kidneys as well. And that will just add some like cool, funky flavors to your ground meat if you're looking for like a really cool burger or something. And a way to use up some of the liver you might not be that fond of. Try some in your grind. It changes the flavor not in a big liver way, but in a cool. Funky might not be a delicious sounding thing to some people, but I really like it. But there's something really special and rich about some grind with.
I think what is it? Force of Nature. They have it's called their heritage blend of like venison, bison, beef they make and sell in the stores, and it includes like the heart, the liver, things like that inside of it. And it's a great way. If you're not going to consume it straight up, throw it in your ground meat.
Yeah,
it's going to just give it more flavor. Cool. Quick last thoughts, Adam, to you.
Okay, I'll try to make this quick. I got an email from a fan of the podcast, Ken Holtz from Michigan. He wrote that there's a significant PFA problem in Michigan, and they got Department of Health said not to eat any fish or game organs at all. And he also had some concerns about gout, which can often arise from eating too many wild game organs. I'm not going to get into it here, but I just want to say that we're going to cover the issue in an article later on, because we have been talking about wild game organs a lot on the podcast. And so I'm going to tackle that issue and go through it. And I might talk with maybe Dr. Reisman or someone who knows what they're talking about more than I do, and figure that all out and get something up on Harvest Nature. So I just wanted to make that clear for Ken and say thanks for listening as well.
No, that's a great thought. Yeah, no, thanks Ken for your thought. We'll address it. We'll get back to you. Heidi, last thought?
I just wanted to add something that I thought of about liver as we're wrapping up here. Small game liver seems to be like a super mild, nice way to start. I've had rabbit liver, and it was like you were talking about earlier, it was like very pale. And it literally was like a bite of custard. Super good. And I've had groundhog liver, and it didn't even taste like liver. It was just like mild and meaty and good. So, like, there's a liver out there for everyone.
Yeah.
Yep, definitely.
Man, I think squirrel foie gras might be on the... squirrels eat very, like, fatty, rich things, right? Like acorns.
Yeah, it's true.
You think about, like, all the old world breeds of, like, acorn finished Iberco pigs or whatever.
Yeah.
Acorn finished. I'm telling you, squirrels, man.
I've seen some in parks where people feed them.
Yeah.
They're fat squirrels. I'm sure the livers would be just delicious.
I'll tell you, though, as a word of caution, in college, I remember walking up on a trash can and seeing a squirrel come out of it with a chicken wing bone in its mouth. And I was like, that's unusual. So
I definitely have seen squirrels.
Yeah.
Yeah, pulling stuff out of the trash, smoking cigarettes, the whole bit.
So, all right, my last thought. No, keep the hearts, keep the livers, find a way to use them. I think they're really valuable. They can add a lot to both your freezer and your availability for meals. Incorporate good flavors. You can use big, bold flavors for them, and you're not going to overpower the flavors of the cuts themselves. They're part of the whole animal. Use them. There's a reason why people ate them many, many years ago. I don't know why people have stopped. We've alluded to some reasons why, but bring it back to your table. Introduce your kids to it. Get them to try it out. Make it normal. Make a yakitori. Oh, we didn't talk about it. A yakitori heart skewer recipe, and people will love it and go crazy over it. And I think really just eat more hearts and livers. But thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll include links and show notes online. Whatever podcast platform you're listening to, punch that 5-star button. Please leave us a review. Tell us we're doing right, or, tell us we're doing wrong. Thanks, everybody.